So far, 2023 has proven to be quite a busy year for IEM market. We are seeing like almost like new IEM release on weekly basis. I lost count of it. Can't keep track of them all definitely. But however, we do have a new contender here, which is with me right now, this Oriveti OD100. Okay. And first of all, I would like to thank E1 Personal Audio Malaysia for this unit that they sent to me for review purposes. And if you are interested to try out Oriveti product, E1 Personal Audio is the official distributor for Malaysia. You can find them at Sungai Wang Plaza on the top floor. And if you want to do it online, you can also visit the website here. All right. So let's just have a look at the IEM itself here. So this is how it look like inside the box. You're gonna get this IEM already assembled like this. Okay. And you're gonna get this nice looking carrying case. Inside this carrying case, you're gonna find some tips, which is a combination of both foam and silicone tips. Very nice. All right. Looking at the hardware itself, here, let's just detach this because this is detachable after all. Put this aside. And this entire IEM is constructed wholly of CNC machine aluminum. Very well built, I would say. There's a good heft to it, the feel itself. And looking at the design, this is something which I consider as a hybrid bullet type IEM with detachable 2-pin cable here. Okay, so you can change the cable. But the interesting part is that you can wear this over the ear type, or if you straighten out the cable, you can even wear it, right? Just hanging like a normal IEM. The old IEM, I mean. Okay, so what's inside? You're gonna find a single dynamic driver, which is a 9.2 mm single with the construction of DLC dynamic driver. And the impedance rating itself is rated at 16 ohm with the sensitivity of 105 dB. The cable, it comes with this 3.5 mm termination single-ended. The cable itself being very well made, and I believe this is silver-plated copper. Now let's talk about sound and performance. In order to do that, to be as concise as possible, I am sharing with you some of the notes which I have jotted down here, as you can see on screen right now, also here, so that I can refer to it, so that I will not miss any one of them. There's 10 items listed there, so let's just go through them one by one. First, talking about power itself, driving this OD100. And I would just simply say, when I first attached this OD100 to my Sony Xperia phone here, which is a typical 1 VRMS phone attached directly to this 3.5 mm port here, it is something which I would consider as efficient to drive. I was already able to use it with a fair presentation of being analytical, musical, and in fact, it is quite engaging, right? And it does scale well with power when I subject it to something which is a bit more with, better with resolution, like this Hebe FC6, my favorite dongle, the one that I spend the most time listening to this OD100. And also I am in the process of testing this FEO KA13, very powerful dongle. So, and I would just like to simply say, it does scale better with power, but perhaps I must also admit the scalability is pretty much limited, perhaps up to 2 VRMS, because I am not hearing any kind of further improvement when attached to even more power like 4 VRMS on some of my desktop amp or even 4 VRMS dongle, because it, like I mentioned earlier, it already sounded great when attached to my Sony phone. As for the tuning itself, I would consider that this OD100 being mild V sound curve, like that, okay? Which means that there's a hint of suppression in the mid-range and some boosting in the lower frequency and some boosting in the upper frequency. And as for the tone and timbre itself, I noted that it is fairly neutral and near organic. So what does it mean? So it also depends on what type of music that you are listening to. For example, when I listen to some sort of, let's say, modern jazz or even, let's say, folk music, I can hear that it is fairly organic sounding. It is natural. But when I subject it to listening to some sort of, let's say, modern electronic music, it can be like, very digital sounding as well. But I would say that it's pretty much very well balanced when it comes to that element. And when it comes to resolution, okay, you can be rest assured this OD100 is transparent, fairly analytical, and clean sounding. So if you love clean sort of sound presentation from your IEM, definitely you can rely on this OD100. And then we talk about energy. Okay, so this is one fast sounding IEM. Okay, the way it handle the transient itself, it is very agile and fast and speedy, and definitely something which I would consider as being energetic, near euphonic, but not too energetic enough to a point of being offensive. Okay, so let's talk about the upper frequency now, the treble itself. Again, pretty much similar to the entire presentation of being, clean and crisp. The treble itself is clean and crisp with a fair amount of extension. Not too much. I can hear a bit of sparkle, but perhaps not too much of air. So it is something which I would consider as being, like I say, clean sounding. Okay, and then let's talk about the mid range itself. And this is where I think one of the strongest element of this OD100. The mid range for this OD100 is definitely neutral, does not exhibit any kind of coloration that I can hear of. I subjected it to different type of female vocal, male vocal, and different type of instrument. What I'm hearing is transparency, the sort of sound which I would expect from those instrument or from those vocal. So that is definitely a good thing. The texture and definition is good as well with the mid range. And talking about the lower frequency now, bass. Now, all right. So there's two things about this. First, this OD100 is definitely something which I would classify as mid-bass heavy, not so much on the sub-bass. So what does it mean? It means that the way it handles the decay for the sub-bass is that it's pretty much like short and snappy. So it does not like, decay in a very smooth way. It's just being fast. So in a layman's term, it's kind of a bit roll off. Okay. So if you are a fan of Harman sort of tuning for the lower frequency with mid-bass scoop and a bit of, long decay on the lower frequency, this will be probably something which is not suitable for you, but it is definitely suitable for people who love strong mid-bass. It is amply punchy with good rumble and energy to it. Now let's talk about the technical aspect of this OD100, starting with the sound stage itself, okay? And as noted here, it is definitely tall, but somewhat normal and even narrowish, depending on what partner you attach it to, okay? And with the staging itself, I would classify this as being traditional stereo type of sound presentation. So what does it mean? It means that to me, this OD100 is well suited for music, but not exactly suited for listening to binaural type of music or even for gaming. Rating and comparison. So how does this OD100 compares against the rest of the competition? So let's just have a look. As you can see on screen, which I am sharing with you right now, that is ND Order ranking system. And let me just remind you, that ranking system does not exist outside of ND Order, okay? This is purely something which I have done to classify and categorize and rank every equipment which I have tested. And it is highly influenced by my perspective. Okay, having said that, let's just have a look at this OD100. As you can see there, the total score for this OD100 is quite respectable at 80 out of 100. And you can pause the screen, just have a look at it and see how does it compare against the rest of the other IM which I have tested so far. Not all of them, but pretty much within the same price range, which is at around under 70 US dollar. And this is how they compare against each other, right? I just like to highlight perhaps the closest thing which I can compare this OD100 is pretty much similar to Moondrop Land or even Moondrop 2 or even Tanjim 1. Okay, they have that similar type of presentation. But the strength of this, if I were to actually scrutinize a bit, it is pretty much on the transparency of the mid-range itself, which I find being the strongest suit of this OD100.